The separation of church and state has become code for a quite different concept: to keep religion out of politics, whatever this means.
The Liberal Party platform says we believe in choice, yet many Liberals oppose a woman's right to choose an abortion. The Liberal Party platform says we believe in giving all citizens equal rights under the law, yet the Howard government refuses to recognise and respect the existence of same-sex relationships. Next, some extremists will want to ban contraception and sex education. Don't let the church govern Australia. Keep religion out of politics. Authorised and spoken by John Goldborn, Potts Point.
Dr. Samuel Gregg describes what he calls doctrinaire secularism, where even mentioning God in the public square is questionable. It further maintains that any religiously motivated action is unacceptable in the public square. As one doctrinaire secularist letter writer puts it, the reason for keeping religion out of politics is a purely pragmatic agreement made by survivors standing on a mountain of bones. If we put religion into politics, we kill each other. To which I respond, no. That's the reason why we separated church ministry and state government. Taking religion out of the political life of the community is of another order entirely. Gregg, taken to its logical conclusion, doctrinaire secularism amounts to the promotion of a type of atheism as the unofficial state religion. By this, I mean that the secularist state insists that anyone contributing to political discussion or acting in the capacity of a state official ought to act as if there is no God, or if there is, this ought to have no bearing whatsoever upon their choices and actions. These are not religiously neutral positions. We need to pause and remember Locke again, because a flaw in his conception of the matter has affected us. The church itself is a thing absolutely separate and distinct from the Commonwealth. The boundaries on both sides are fixed and immovable. He jumbles heaven and earth together, the things most remote and opposite, who mixes these two societies, which are in their original end, business and in everything perfectly distinct and infinitely different from each other. This way of putting it is quite seductive, and it would be nice and easy if it were true. But has Locke become a bit carried away? For when has it ever been true that churches are absolutely separate and distinct from the Commonwealth they inhabit? When has it ever been true that these boundaries are fixed and immovable, or churches perfectly distinct and infinitely different in their business and goals? Locke has manifestly and obviously overstated the point. Indeed, a major problem with his letter concerning toleration is that he simply defines churches as people who sit around and talk about eternity. But every Christian I know thinks that the coming kingdom of Jesus has all sorts of impact on the here and now. Locke stipulates ethics to be something in the domain of the judge only and not of the preacher, but every Christian I know thinks that Christianity has something to say about ethics. Locke has bequeathed a definition of religion that modern people love to enforce, that religion is a set of private beliefs and feelings only. But every Christian I know thinks that Christianity has an enormous amount to say about relationships and social structures and well-being. The famous Christian theologian Augustine of the 4th century would have disagreed with Locke, I think. Augustine liked to tell the story, sort of an epic tale really, of two cities mixed indistinguishably together in every earthly state. And it's not a bad summary really of the Bible's overall depiction of human society. Though there are many great nations throughout the world living according to different rites and customs and distinguished by many different forms of language, arms and dress, there nonetheless exists only two orders, as we may call them, of human society. And following our scriptures, we may rightly speak of these as two cities. The one is made up of those who live according to the flesh, and the other of those who live according to the Spirit. Each desires its own kind of peace, and when they have found what they sought, each lives its own kind of peace. Now again, there are aspects of Augustine's account that you might hate, but again, I'm asking you to see how evangelical Christians understand what is going on as we go through life alongside each other. The life of these two intermingled cities is a perpetually shifting mosaic of alliance and confrontation about what brings peace, which means that the wall of separation metaphor is sometimes more trouble than it's worth, also well recognised in the US discussion. The line of separation, far from being a wall, is a blurred, indistinct and variable barrier depending on all the circumstances of a particular relationship. No significant segment of our society and no institution within it can exist in a vacuum or in total or absolute isolation from all the other parts, much less from government. Whatever the distinction that we want to make between church and state, it simply can't be a disentanglement of religion from the political life of a community. Australia simply can't be separated in this way. A final separation between Christians and the political process can only occur if Christians are rooted out, their literature destroyed and they are killed or expelled, for mere imprisonment can't do the job since prisons still affect their society. Doctrinaire secularism is either naive or tyrannical. It has taken what began as a fight about the freedom of religion and turned it into a demand for total freedom from religion. For these purists, that religion might touch their minds is as offensive as unwanted cigarette smoke touching their bodies. And their vendetta is a little like the one against passive smoking, out of town halls and offices and bars, off the pavements, into homes, then into the catacombs and martyrdom. But doctrinaire secularists need to understand the way in which Augustine is obviously right. Christian self-perception is never going to change and will drive Christian behaviours until either our Lord returns or the sun goes dark, depending on who's right. Doctrinaire secularism can fuss all it likes about the inappropriateness of Christian discourse, but Christians are never going to believe it. And the uneasily jostling about whose version of peace is right will keep emerging in 1,000 different ways. My advice to them is to stop wasting emotional energy over the fact, just as I must come to terms with modern art, football commentators and daytime soaps. We will keep stating our account of what brings peace, and if we can't do it publicly, we will do it subversively. Better then that doctrinaire secularism does business with the content of these accounts of peace, rather than continuing with the rather boring project of always reprimanding us for sharing.